Hello everyone. Today we're going to be replacing an analog movement readout that's inside of a Bird 43 wattmeter case with the DWM V2 digital wattmeter readout. So when ordering the DWM V2, you can order it in a few options. In this case, it's going to come with a battery pack, a power and communication pass-through, a USB-C cable, a power and signaling cable, and a spare parts bag. Now, in order to do the installation, you don't really need any of these parts. However, what may help are the zip ties to help with some cable management, but in this case, I'm not gonna need that. So I'm gonna put this to the side for now. So in terms of tools that we're gonna need for this installation, first one is gonna be a Phillips or a flathead screwdriver, depending on the types of screws that are used to fasten your meter together. We're going to need an 8mm socket. This is going to be for the line sections cable that's going to have terminals on it. And from there, it's going to be connecting to the back of this readout. Now there's nuts on there. This 8mm will be for that. And then we will also need a 7mm socket. And this is going to be for the nuts on the back of the DWM V2. All right. Excellent. And of course, there's going to be some optional tools. This is going to be for a little modification we're going to do in this particular case. You do not need to actually do this modification. I just like to do it with meters that require a little bit more robustness in terms of RF immunity. So in this case, I'm going to grab some linesman pliers, a little terminal connector here. It could be a fork or a ring, doesn't matter. And that's about it. So let's get started. I'm going to scooch all this to the side here. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to loosen these screws here. We're going to remove our side panel screws, side screws. This will help us remove our back panel. Be careful, you don't want to use any power tools on this. These the little nuts in here are quite sensitive. And when you want to remove this back plate, I mean, for the people who are lucky, this thing will come out very cleanly. If it's a little tight and it's hard to just pull on it, you might want to get a little flathead screwdriver here and stick it between the line section and the housing and just give it a little twist and you pry it out. Be careful for your paint not to scratch it too much for those who care. And there you go. Now, once this back plate is off, you're going to be careful here. You got to be careful because these little tabs here, well, these little pieces, they can fall off quite easily. And sometimes they're stripped and all that, so you might want to replace it. Just don't lose these. Stick that to the side as well. Put these in a nice spot. All right, now we have the back of our meter here. We're going to need to remove these two nuts. All right, this is going to be where our 8mm socket comes in. If you do not have an 8mm socket, that's okay. Just go with some pliers and just be careful. So here we go. We're just going to loosen these up. Most line section cables have just fork connectors here, so you don't have to unscrew the nuts all the way. Just going to tighten these back up so we don't lose anything. And then we're going to start unscrewing our readout. Okay, we're going to do one. And then on the second one here, we're going to want to be careful because as we're unscrewing it, we don't want our readout to fall out. So I'm going to hold it from the back. And then we'll be careful here and we'll just nicely remove it because we don't want to lose this thing. We don't want to damage it. It's still a great piece of hardware that's quite useful in the world. So here we are. I'll stick this to the side now and use it for something else. Now, this is our empty housing. Now we're going to install our V2. So before we install anything though, we're going to want to remove our safety shipping tab. This is going to be really to prevent the meter from powering on during shipping or anything like that. So we're just going to hold on to the battery right here, grab onto the tab and pull. And then now when we turn it around, the meter should power on. And then we can remove our little shipping protector screen here, screen protector. And this is our meter, ready to go. So I'm going to power this off. And what we're going to do here to put this in, we're going to bring it in bottom first. And then as we bring it in, we're going to rotate it forward into position. And then you're going to feel might be a little bit difficult at one point. So you're going to take 2 thumbs and you're going to press it into you're going to press the back of the meter into the housing. And it should either click and just have a nice register right into the front hole of the meter here, or the housing. So once that's done, you're going to take your 2 side screws and you're just going to make sure that your holes here are nice and aligned. A lot of times these housings, they can come with some variability in their size. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes you might have to back off the meter a little bit, or advance it a little bit more into the housing. Just make sure things are nice and aligned before screwing everything in. Again, you don't need to use power tools here. Doesn't have to be gorilla tight. So first thing that we're going to do here is we're going to connect our line section cable. Now on the back of our original readout, our positive was on our left side and our negative was on our right. The DWM V2 is the opposite. So our positive's on the right, our negative's on the left. So when you're looking at this cable here, you're going to see this lighter one. This is going to be our positive. And then this outer one here that's connected to our shield, this black one, is going to be our negative. So we're going to try to orient this in a way so that it's nice and pretty here. And we're just going to unscrew these little nuts a little bit. Okay, and we're going to fit this in. Okay, we're going to grab our, we got to grab our 7mm socket. There we go. Reconnect this. Oops. Okay. And you're going to be a little bit mindful of how much these little terminals here are angled, because when we're going to put in our pass-through, when we pass it through here, you're going to see we have to be careful not for our cables to interfere with this terminal. So just keep that in mind. Try to keep this terminal as far to the side, as close as you can to this battery. That'll help. That'll give you as much space as possible. So I like to hold it with my thumb here and then tighten it. Same thing for here. Good. Okay, now before we continue, in this case, we are going to modify this cable. All right, so this cable is going to be our little RF immunity mod here that we're going to do. This is only really needed in really high RF environments, especially when you have an external USB cable that's connected all the time to the meter. So yeah, this isn't necessary, but we're going to do it here. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick off our 2 black cables here, and we're going to just choose one of them. It doesn't matter which one. Both of them are ground. Or negative. So I'm just going to pick, let's say, this one, and we're going to pick it right in the middle of our wire harness here. And I'm going to grab my linesman pliers here and just cut it. Okay, only cut one. That's all we need. All right. Now, the side is kind of important. So what we're going to do here is on our pass-through, we're going to want to look at the side of our wire harness where the black wires are on the right side of the connector. So see right here, our black is on the right side, and then when we plug it in, it's like this. See, so you should see the black from this angle, okay? Not the other way around. Okay, this is a mirrored cable. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this guy, I'm gonna strip it, like that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put on our little terminal here. Just going to crimp this down. Doesn't have to be perfect. All right, here we go. And then for the other half here, we don't want this really to act as any kind of an antenna or to be poking around in other parts of our housing. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and cut it like that. Throw that to the side. Great. So this is what it should look like now. All right. Now, we're going to take our USB cable here and we're going to plug it into our pass-through. The orientation of this does not matter. All right. And now this is going to be the tricky bit because we want to be careful on how we orient our cables coming through here because things are a little tight inside of this housing. It is kind of small. So the idea is to have this cable here, our power and signaling cable, to go from behind, and then our USB cable to go in the front over here. All right. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to pass this through, pass this one through. And then we're going to get through our little grounding cable here, grounding wire. And I'll just put this down below. All right. Bring this like this. Okay. And you'll see here, it really helps to have that terminal nice and close to that battery pack. All right. We're going to kind of muscle it in there a little bit, and we're going to lock in our pass-through into place. Okay, now, before we do anything else, this is going to be our grounding lug. Now, obviously, you want this to be as short as possible. In this case, I just cut it in the halfway point, just so you have a little bit more cabling to work with here. If you do want better performance, you could say, you want to shorten this as much as possible, but just the basic connection's fine. Some people do like to go and have it connected up to our negative terminal here on the DWM. I don't fully recommend that. I actually recommend to hook it up onto one of the screws here that are on the line section. This is because you have more of a direct path to ground rather than the RF path along the ground plane around our ground connection here, going from here through this cable onto our lug here, and then going back around, and then finally to our shield of our coax. So you want to minimize the path. You want to minimize inductance going to ground, right? And I know this isn't fully ideal, but this is the best that we can do given the circumstances of the casing and how everything kind of works, right? Especially with the 3D printed cases that we have. So what we're going to do here, we're going to unscrew this one on the top right. And we're going to pass this in. Snug it down and maybe bend it in just a little bit. So there we go. Now it's going to be time for our USB cables here, our USB cable and our power and signaling cable. So we're going to take our power and signaling cable, and we want to be careful not to pinch our little power cable here that's going to our board. So I'm going to grab it, and we're just going to pull this guy a little bit out of the way, and we're going to connect this guy into place. Just like that. Now we're going to take our USB here, and we're going to plug it in on our right side on our communication port. Now this is where the zip ties might come in handy a little bit for some cable management. In this case, I'm fairly confident that nothing's going to get pinched, nothing's going to get chafed. So I'm just going to have it set like this inside the housing when I put the back panel back on. So that's about it. Here we go. Oh, also, that's true. If ever you want to use an interlock, well, it's right here. So you have an interlock output that you can always use. You can always feed the cabling back and around and out this hole over here as you wish. But this is quite useful if ever you need an interlock for an amplifier or some transmitter or something like that. So keep that in mind. Now we're going to put this back panel back on here. Okay. And we're going to get our screws. Okay. Again, we don't need to go, nothing needs to be gorilla tight here. If it's going on an aircraft, I understand, but in most cases, this will, finger tight will be fine. Okay. Here we are. Get that in there. Sometimes that panel a little bit difficult to align, so. Great. So here you are. Your DWM V2 is fully installed inside of your Bird 43 housing. So we'll power it on right now. And this is what the screen that you're greeted with is. So the first thing that you're going to see is, well, your power. You're going to see your power type that you're currently looking at, the element that's currently configured, the element number that's currently configured, the type of element that it is, being a 30 microamp or a 100 microamp, your battery state, and then finally a little bar graph up here to help better represent the power levels that it might be fluctuating around. So there's a few button combinations that we can do in order to achieve get certain features activated in the DWM V2. So in this case, we're just going to be changing this element to 5 watts. As we can see here, it's still 100 watts. So in order to do that, let's first look at our buttons that we have available to us. This one here is our menu button or back button. This is our up button, down button, and this is our enter button. So like we said, we can do different combinations. That's for another video. But for now, we're going to go to menu by clicking the menu button. And then now this is our main menu. We're going to click on element. And then we're going to choose which element memory slot that we want to change or occupy this time. In this case, we're just going to go with memory slot number 1 out of 8. Click enter. And then we're going to go down to rating because we want to change the rating of our element that's currently being shown. That's currently being used, rather. And then this is our scale. So for our scale, it's really just what are the first non-zero numbers of our element that we can see. So in this case, it's 5, but here it shows 1. That's because right now it's showing for a 100 watt element. So we want to increase this number until we see 5.0. 5.0, hit enter, and then we see our magnitude. This is for how much power that our element can handle. So we're going to want to set this down to 5 watts because, well, this is what our element is. Bring it down to 5 watts. And you see here, it shows currently 100 watts. That's because of the previous setting of the element. When we hit enter here, we're going to see that it's going to change afterwards. So there we go. And then if ever you are using a 100 microamp element or a 30 microamp element, you can always go and change it over here between 30 and 100 UA. The majority of Bird elements here, especially the ones that fit on the 7/8 line sections, or pretty much all coaxial dynamics elements are 30 microamp elements. So it's pretty rare that you're going to have a 100 UA. That's only for the bigger line sections and for Bird, for mostly Bird style line section elements. So we're going to go and we're just going to leave it at the 30 microamps over here. It's always 30 microamps by default, by the way. So we're going to go up and we're going to click use. You don't have to click use. It just sets the meter to that element. We should already be set to that, but I'm just going to hit enter anyways. Okay, we're going to go back. This is our 5 watt element that's now configured in the memory slot. Go back again. And then now there is autosave that I implemented into the firmware. But if ever you're not sure, you just want to be on the safe side before you power it off, you can always go ahead and save it. You can wrap around in the menus. If you're at the top, if you're at the first selection here, just hit the up button and it'll wrap you around. Go up to save config, and yes. There we go. Now everything is saved. So as you can see here, a couple things changed. First one is our element rating that we have here. And then also we could see that our range kind of changes. So it's showing 0.0 milliwatts instead of 0.000 watts. This is because there's some auto ranging that's going on for the size of the element that we're currently working with. So if you use a 10 kilowatt element, it's not going to show you milliwatts. So there we go. And now we're ready to go ahead and use our element for measuring power. That is all. Thank you.